should be ashamed of yourself for having that thought.
Not gonna do it. Wouldn't be prudent at this juncture.
It's science.
That's hot.
Come on! I feel like I'm taking crazy pills.
There's no point in you betraying your future self to gratify your present self. It's a stupid game.
What'd you drum up?
Consequences.
No hot right now.
The equal parts. Oh my gosh. people pay.
It's science.
I'm being repressed!
Climate and everything are the same word.
Jesus ain't say that.
Not gonna do it. Wouldn't be prudent at this juncture.
This is from 12 Rules for Life.
The problem here, the county needs to step up and own it and resolve it and get this water out of here. China? I have to have my China. I did everything right and they indicted me. Illegal.
Oh, it never occurred to me.
Interesting.
It's just
That's
crazy
something
enough to
say.
work.
Yeah.
Well, here we are again. So good to see all you folks here on this beautiful Saturday. Got a hell of a lot here to look at, so we better get right to it. Hopefully you've already got your seatbelts fastened for this long journey we're about to take. A journey to the unknown. Let's see. Who's showing up? Disco Wolf first, second for Selena Mary, and third for Aaron W. See Mo and Noah up in the mix. Bob Garmody, Delso Verde, and Mrs. Jen. Good to see you all. Got a lot to talk about here today, as I was just saying. Political stuff, environmental stuff, space stuff, and global stuff. All the stuff, really. Let's start here in the United States. And apparently, Donald Trump and his campaign have claimed they have been hacked. That's right. Donald Trump. Hacked by who? Well, there's a question I'm gonna try and answer. Let's start with the channel that we essentially never use. Here's News Nation from 2 hours ago. Trump campaign says it's been hacked. Oh boy.
A new report, the Trump campaign claiming they have been hacked by foreign sources, citing a Microsoft threat intelligence report that said there are cyber attack concerns coming from Iran. Microsoft saying there were attacks on both sides of the aisle. Mills, what do we know about this report about Trump's campaign being hacked?
Hey, Natasha. Well, the Trump campaign says that they've been illegally hacked by foreign sources trying to interfere with the 2024 election. And this comes after Politico reported that.
Now, I find this funny that they just kind of breezed past that point. They're like, oh no, we don't have to talk about that too much. But it's not just Donald Trump who's been hacked. It's been both the Republicans and the Democrats. So it doesn't appear to be targeted specifically at Trump. Just one of the individuals.
They began receiving internal campaign emails from someone named Robert. He told Politico that he had a variety of court documents from Trump's legal team and documents about VP J.D. Vance's vulnerabilities.
The Trump campaign on Saturday saying its internal campaign communications were hacked, tying the plot to a foreign adversary. A Trump team spokesperson said in a statement on Friday, a new report from Microsoft found that Iranian hackers broke into the account of a high-ranking official in the U.S. presidential campaign in June 2024, which coincides with the close timing of President Trump's selection of a vice presidential nominee. This hack comes after Trump took to the campaign trail in Montana Friday, a solidly red state. He took aim at the vice president's role tied to the southern border.
Okay, that's enough of that. Let's go here now. Whoopsies. Enough of you, News Nation. Let's go here. CNN from 3 hours ago. Literally the exact same title. Well, let's hear CNN's take on this exact same situation.
The Trump campaign saying it's been hacked by what it is calling foreign sources who are trying to interfere in the 2024 election. I'm joined now by CNN contributor Lulu Garcia-Navarro and CNN political commentator Essie Cupp. It's great to see both of you here on the Saturday afternoon. Essie, let's start first with you. There are shades of 2016 to this, as our reporter Jeremy Herb was just kind of laying out. And we have known that foreign actors want to interfere in the U.S. election.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge problem. It's not a problem that we're unprepared for, but it's good to be a constant reminder that hacking, disinformation, this is a big part, especially by foreign entities. This is a big part of why, as voters, we need to be really educated, diligent, vigilant, all the things.
Ooh, all the things, Essie.
So much information is flying at us.
Everybody,
from so many different places.
Everybody, write that down. Essie Cupp is telling us, so we better do it. Do all the things, okay? All of them at once.
Especially on social media. It's hard to know what's real. It's hard to know what's faked. And now with these leaks, we're, potentially getting access to things that we're not supposed to see. Any campaign would be very upset to learn that their sort of, their secret weapon, the plans that they have are being shared potentially with the press and then potentially with voters.
Their secret weapon. Okay. Okay, Essie. Thank you. Donald Trump's secret weapon. As if Donald Trump could keep anything an actual secret.
Immediately, if not sooner.
Okay, so honestly, we will see what happens. This just came out a few hours ago. And these are the only 2 videos that are on the internet about this at this point, really. Supposedly, it's being done by some Iranian actor. It's unclear. Okay. Are you supposed to do all the nouns or just the things? I would just be safe and do both the nouns and the things. I mean, fact is I think if you're doing all the things, you're doing the nouns too, right? Or vice versa? Right? Am I wrong? Or does things also include verbs? Because I think she might have actually said some verbs and some adjectives, and I can't remember the list now. I feel like I want to go back to actually give you a real answer to this question. But I do feel like that would hinder our progress in this stream, so I'm just going to keep it moving. Let's go here to Forbes breaking news from an hour ago. Ooh, breaking. Thank God for Forbes with the breaking news. Okay, well, if it's breaking, we better use this. Forbes breaking news from an hour ago. Quote unquote, that was the first coup in the history of our country. Trump rips Kamala Harris for Biden dropout. Ooh, sounds very serious.
And that's the only one she'll do. And when Biden came out with a brilliant idea to have a debate, how did that work out for him? Not so good. But he came out, they handed me Jake Tapper, sometimes referred to as Fake Tapper, but I have to tell you, he was totally fair, and Dana Bash, and they were totally fair. They really were. CNN. So they said, we want a debate. They gave me one option, because they weren't going to debate. He didn't want to debate. They gave me one option. CNN, Dana Bash, and Jake Tapper. There will be no audience.
Okay, I don't think that's what they said, actually. I'm actually 100% positive. If he's talking about the first situation, there were 2 different debates, not just one. So I'm very confused.
They will be turning off your mics as soon as you finish speaking, and if you go over 1 second, they turn off, and they make you look very bad. The good part is he didn't use much of this. They give you 2 minutes, and they'd say, right, you have 92 seconds left. And I kept saying, I'll take it. Can I have it? I want it. I want the 92 seconds that this and then to do another one. You have 37 seconds left. That's a lot, you know, when you're up there, 37 seconds.
37, it's a very long amount of time. I don't know if you've ever watched a clock for 30 seconds. It is unbearable. Might as well be an eon.
And that's the last thing he wanted to hear because he didn't want to talk anymore. You have 77 seconds left. He goes, oh, Joe, what am I going to do? This is who our president was, and now we have somebody that's worse, in my opinion, worse.
Ooh, worse.
You have to remember, they said that he couldn't beat me now. I mean, after the debate, he was down, way down in the polls. They didn't even want to show the polls. They said he's not going to win. So they said, we're going to take him out, and we're going to put somebody new in. This never happened to anybody before.
I love that. I love that phrasing. They were going to take him out. Joe Biden is, if you didn't know, he's now dead. He was taken out. They went out, they shot him, right? And so Joe Biden's now dead. And Kamala's the new president. That's what's happening right now. That's the only way to interpret that sentence, I feel like.
We spent $100 million fighting crooked Joe Biden. And then all of a sudden they decide to take him out and put somebody else in. She never got one vote. She was the first loser in the primaries. You know, she ran against Joe Biden and everybody else. I think they had like 16 people running. She never made Iowa the first state. I love Iowa. You know why I love it? Because I win it every single time with a farm. We win it. But she never made Iowa. She was the first one to quit. And now, and stupid.
Bob is right. Don really wants a refund on that $100 million. I don't know exactly. I have an idea of who it would be that would owe him that money, I guess. Because it's not like he paid Joe Biden that $100 million. Like, he went and gave it to a bunch of advertisers and people like that. So, I guess, you know, is that making sense? You know, like news networks, other things, maybe some social media companies.
Honestly, she was the nastiest to him, too, and then he picked her. I couldn't believe it.
Illegal.
And she was part of the cabal that got him out. You know, they got him out. They said, we'll do it the nice way, or we'll do it the hard way, Joe. We'll use the 25th Amendment, and we'll call you mentally incompetent, and everybody will believe us. And, you know, what they did is a terrible thing, actually.
Now, that wouldn't be a threat in any way if Joe Biden wasn't mentally incompetent, right? So you have to accept the premise that he wasn't fit for the job, to accept that as being an actual viable threat.
Force him out. It was a coup. We had a coup.
Wait,
First
sorry.
coup in the
Whoopsies.
history. Terrible, incompetent, and everybody will believe us. And, you know, what they did is a terrible thing, actually. They forced him out. It was a coup. We had a coup. That was the first coup in the history of our country.
Wow.
And it was very successful. He said, okay, I'll leave.
Now, historically, that statement's just false. And what's so interesting about this, because I was like, no, I could swear there were at least a few coups that have happened in United States history. As it turns out, yes, there have been. Donald Trump maybe just never heard about them. I don't know. You know, I don't work at the Wharton School of Economics. But what's interesting, very, very interesting, because when I looked up, because I had to double check. I was like, this can't be true. I went on Wikipedia, I looked it up, and it turns out, at least according to Wikipedia, which is, you know, it is what it is. But on the list are two different attempts from recent years, specifically 2020 and 2021, that appear to be somehow related to him. So it's weird that he wouldn't remember those. But of course, that would be just admitting the fact that not only did his campaign attempt a coup, but then his followers also tried one right after that.
That's what you want, I'll leave. And now he's seeing what the competition is. I hear he's going to make a comeback at the Democrat convention. He's going to walk into the room and he's going to say, I want my presidency back. I want another.
He still has his presidency, you fucking idiot. Jesus Christ. He's such a dumb fuck. Nobody's taking away Joe Biden's presidency. He's still the president. He's still doing presidential stuff. Just, you know, it is a lame duck, you know, term at this point, right? They're, you know, but he's still president. Until the election and the inauguration happen. All that needs to happen before he's no longer presidency. You know, that's just the way that works. The dark Brandon rises. Yeah, exactly. He's gonna show up and his eyes will be burning red. Dark Brandon energy. Take out everybody at the DNC and reinstate himself as the Democratic nominee. It's a ridiculous idea. It is a ridiculous idea. Can't even say it seriously. Now, just in case anybody had forgotten about this. Now, we all remember what, and I think I might do a fucking thing, because people keep talking about this, specifically Donald Trump. So we might have to do a deeper dive on this later. That's my sense of it. And I might have to actually do my job and like clip a video. But yeah, like this is it's gotten out of control. The fact that he continues claiming, and that multiple people in the Republican Party or on the right have been claiming that a coup happened here. Well, we might need to double check on all that in a more serious way. But let's just quickly look at this 2-minute piece from the Telegraph from 2 years ago of footage from January 6th. Go web, go, please. Why? What's happening? What in the fuck? You think the Hulk's gonna get involved? Oh, cool. That's weird. How's everybody doing? My browser here just decided to... Oh, wait. There we go. Take it back. Forget about you and how you're doing. Just kidding. Tell me. But also watch this.
Riot is here. We're going to give riot warning. We're going to try to get compliance, but this is now effectively a riot.
49 hours declaring it a riot.
35 to 50 be advised, Capitol Police 1 advised they're trying to breach and get into the Capitol.
We have a breach of the Capitol! Breach of the Capitol!
Weird.
Illegal.
Totally peaceful. Non-coup.
We need to hold the doors of the Capitol. I need court support. We lost the line. We lost the line. All MPDs get back. All MPDs get back up to the upper deck.
So yeah. first coup ever. Not this. No, I'm not sorry. I'm not talking about this. I was referring to that video from before. Referring to Joe Biden being, not even being ousted. Stepping down. Joe Biden stepping down from the race. That's the first American coup of all time, according to history and Trump.
Peaceful people. These were great people. The crowd was unbelievable. And I mentioned the word love. The love in the air. I've never seen anything like it.
Oh, so loving.
I did everything right and they indicted me.
Weird. Unfortunately, this happened not long ago, and I didn't really prepare for this, so I was... Which is why I think we should do a deeper dive on these coup accusations, actual coups, among other things, and what actually happened here. Because I just want everybody to just sort of reach back in their mind to about 3-4 weeks ago, when people were going on places like CNN and politely saying that, you know, Joe has done a super great job. Joe Biden is an American hero, but I think he might not be doing a great job right now in terms of this election race. And I think maybe someone else should take over. You know. That's what I remember happening. I don't remember any coups. Any coups d'etat. I see that. We have 21 likes now. I will respect the likes and give you another support character. Please hold. Okay, where do we start here? Let's go to this show, which some of you may be familiar with. Asking a very important question. Is Donald Trump losing it?
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills!
Donald Trump gave a press conference yesterday, and no one is quite sure why. I have an idea. We will play some of the absolute insanity that went on there. I mean, it's interesting because it does not help him to get out there in a way that draws this kind of attention to him. I personally don't think. He plays best to his audience. But I think the idea was sort of revealed, and I don't know that he was out there to say this, but I think this was ultimately the idea. This is clip number 16. He is at Mar-a-Lago, and he's asked about his lighter campaign schedule. He really, now, I remember
campaigning with Vance, which is interesting. Like Vance has not been, and
I don't know how strange that is. I mean, they do their barnstorming tour together, and then they go out separately. But it's easy.
I feel bad for the Barnes, honestly, in the whole situation. If you're a Barn and suddenly you got JD Vance and Donald Trump inside of you, ugh, gross.
Read too much into the implications of this, because in 2016, I remember distinctly saying the guy's lazy. He doesn't get out there very much. And they have no ground game, et cetera, et cetera. Now, there was a lot of mistakes made by the Clinton campaign at that time, particularly in the context of the ground game. They did some modeling as opposed to canvassing because they didn't have quite the core of volunteers that they thought they might need or want. And I imagine that's a very different scenario this time around, but one can only hope. But why would Donald Trump go out and do a press conference now? And I think here he reveals the aspirations.
Okay. Mr. President, you have not had a public campaign event for nearly a week now. Tomorrow you'll be in Montana, which is not a swing state. Some of your allies have expressed concern that you're not taking this race seriously, particularly at a time where there is enthusiasm on the other side. Why haven't you been campaigning this week?
Because I'm leading by a lot, and because I'm letting their convention go through, and I am campaigning a lot.
Pause it for a second. Now, I just look, first of all, we know he's not leading by a lot. There are some polls where he's up by a couple of points. There's some polls where he's down by a couple of points and maybe more. Frankly, if I wanted to get nitpicky about it, I would say the polls that he's up by a couple of points are well within the margin of error. To the extent that there's any polling where they're outside the margin of error, Harris is leading, but he's not leading by a lot to justify those 7 days. The idea that he's going to let their convention go through, why would you do that?
Which is so funny because that used to be like an old kind of gentleman's agreement between the parties. But you know who broke that was Obama. Obama decided because what we want to do is actually win the election. So like, is Trump just respecting the old norms of the pre-Obama Republican and Democratic parties, or is there something else going on here?
Now that is hilarious to think of Donald Trump as being sort of respectful of these sorts of things, as if that hasn't been like the antithesis of everything he stands for, supposedly.
There's, there was something else going on, and but I think has he not been out there since the interview he did with the National Black Journalists Association?
And people are guessing he may have had COVID, but also, and I referenced this yesterday, we'll have Crystal on in a bit, I also think he enjoys having, basically J.D. Vance go out and audition, humiliate himself and show his fealty to a certain degree and go out on a limb by himself. I think that's a part of what he likes, right? Like, he likes showing dominance and having people serve him.
That might be it. It also could be just taking a little time to do some self-care. But all right, go ahead.
Self-care, yeah.
Convention go through, and I am campaigning a lot. I'm doing tremendous amounts of taping here. We have commercials that are at a level I don't think that anybody's ever done before. Plus, in certain cases, I see many of you in the room where I'm speaking to you on phones, I'm speaking to radio, I'm speaking to television. The
way that he said that, did anybody else get a vision of Donald Trump in sort of like a dimly lit room surrounded by old radios and like tube TVs, and he's just kind of talking to them? Like not to actual people at news networks. No, he just sort of standing there talking. Now, what you don't understand about Kamala Borders-Harris is...
coming over here. Excuse me, what are we doing right now? She's not doing any news conference. You know why she's not doing it? Because she can't do a news conference. She doesn't know how to do a news conference. She's not smart enough to do a news conference. And I'm sorry, we need smart people to lead this country because our country's never been in this danger before, both economically and from an outside perspective. Russia doesn't respect us anymore. China doesn't respect us anymore. North Korea.
Russia doesn't respect us anymore. Me and Vlad, we were big-time friends, and now you won't even return America's calls. Oh my God. Don James just gigantified a galactic emote. Is that a gigantic dancing Gary? My God. Truly incredible. Breathtaking, really, is the word that comes to mind. All right. Well, let's talk a little bit more about the race, as some things have been going on, seemingly. There's MSNBC from a day ago. Apparently, Donald Trump's campaign has been not far right enough for some people recently. Mostly groypers, but that is a change for Donald, as they used to just utterly love him so much, and now support is waning? That can't be possible.
But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm willing
prepared to
do
specifically
that, but
do it? Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Say it. Do you want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and white
supremacists.
You said white supremacists twice. I remember that. And then Biden had to get in there and say the Proud Boys. I feel like that was a missed opportunity by just not shutting your mouth. Okay, hold on. We don't need to listen to everybody. I feel like everybody remembers this footage. Let's go here.
Perhaps no moment revealed Donald Trump more than that one right there. Given the opportunity to disavow and condemn white supremacists or the Proud Boys or any of the racist and vile groups, white supremacists, he couldn't do it. Couldn't do it. Told to stand back and stand by instead.
That's not
so it is
actually what
noteworthy
he said.
today to inform you of.
Hold on. Oh, look, Nick Fuentes' face. How lovely. He didn't actually say stand back and stand by. What he said was stand black with a W in there. Stand black and stand by. That was, I believe, the exact phrase used.
Pulling the plug in support of Donald Trump. Some of those same white supremacists, one of whom dined with Donald Trump at his club at Mar-a-Lago, coming out and declaring war today against his campaign. Nick Fuentes now says Trump isn't living up to the America First values that Fuentes and his band of white supremacists expect, adding this, quote, without serious changes, we're headed for a catastrophic loss. At least he can read a poll. Joining our coverage, NBC News correspondent Vaughn Hilliard. Vaughn, what's going on in MAGA world?
This is the difficult part, is when a clear delineation is not made and Nick Fuentes ultimately makes his way to your dinner table at your private estate alongside the likes of Kanye West. Suddenly there are some added expectations. And let's be very clear, Nick Fuentes has been a long-time figure calling for Groyper Nation, which is another word for white nationalists. He has called Christian white males the secret sauce of America. He said January 6th did not go far enough. And so in his eyes, Donald Trump, who has been atop the Republican Party for 8-9 years now, there was a higher set of expectations. And Donald Trump, in his view, is not wholly fulfilling them. At the same time, I want to be clear here, Donald Trump, right, just earlier this week, you'll recall who Nick Fuentes went and had dinner with at Mar-a-Lago in 2022. It was the likes of, now known as Ye, Kanye West, who just earlier this week kind of got lost amid everything else here. But Donald Trump said about Kanye West, was specifically saying that he was complicated, but, quote, a really nice guy. Quote, he's got a good heart. And so yet, in a lot of ways, that's...
I just realized what he's quoting. He's quoting that fucking Aiden Ross live stream right now. Hilarious. I cannot believe it. I can't believe that's what's happening right now. MSNBC quoting an Aiden Ross live stream. Kick stream. Wow, hilarious. But yeah, apparently Nick Fuentes is very disappointed with Donald Trump for not supporting Groypers and white nationalists in general enough. It's very, very sad. How many times has Trump run for office? Is it 4? Is it 4 or 3? Oh my god. That one's actually breaking me inside a little bit. Did he even try to run in 2012? I can't remember. I have to look it up. Is it 4 times? It is 4 times. It is 4. So he's 1 for 3 so far, with 1 still potentially undecided here. In 2000, he tried in 2000. Yeah, okay. What a weird guy. Okay, let's go and look at some numbers. How does that sound? CNN from 4 hours ago.
And just hours from now, Vice President Kamala Harris and her running mate, Governor Tim Walz, will take the stage at a rally in Las Vegas. They'll be wrapping up a nearly week-long tour through some of the most critical battleground states of this election. The Harris campaign has seen a jolt of voter enthusiasm in the last 3 weeks since President Biden dropped out of the race and she became the party's presumptive nominee. She's new polling showing it's not just vibes. CNN's Harry Enten here to break that polling data down for us. Harry, what do these new New York Times polls show? I've heard from a lot of people about these today, a lot of people with eyes on these.
Yeah, a lot of people. I think this was the type of polling we've been waiting for, right? We've seen that national polling showing movement towards Kamala Harris. Now we get some swing state polling showing something very similar. All right, these are in the Great Lake battleground states. We're talking about Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. You go back to May, what'd you see? You saw that a pretty tight race between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, but you see more red than blue on the screen. Of course, all 3 of these states were states that Joe Biden carried last time around. You saw a 3-point lead for Trump in Pennsylvania, 1 well within the margin of error in Wisconsin, and then a 1-point lead for Biden, Michigan. But look at where...
Yeah, look at that. That's a 7-point swing in Pennsylvania. Even without Josh Shapiro. 5 points in Wisconsin, and 3 points in Minnesota. But still, these are definitely good numbers. These are good numbers. And the fact is those are some of, Biden's better states. All right, I'm being a little bit I'm exaggerating a little bit, but the point is that this is huge, right? Granted, it's supposedly still close to being within the margin of error. I think it's a 3-point margin or something like that. But this is substantial, and especially in these states that she needs to win the election. Right now, we can't be this far out from the election like we were a month ago, thinking you're losing those states, right? In some cases, in some polls we saw Joe Biden was losing swing states by 6%. I think Nevada, I want to say he was down 6% in. More than that, maybe 7. There were some bad looks all across the board.
We are now. This is the type of movement the Harris campaign has been looking for. Look in Pennsylvania, a 4-point advantage. Wisconsin, a 4-point advantage. Michigan, a 4-point advantage. And in all 3 of these states, we see clear movement towards the Democratic nominee. I will point out we're still in no clear leader land in this particular instance, but the Harris campaign has to love this movement. 7 points in Pennsylvania, 5 points in Wisconsin, and 3 points in the great state of Michigan, all moving towards Kamala Harris.
Minnesota.
And she has the advantage in all 3, although, again, no clear leader within the margin of error.
Of course, it's Michigan.
Important to keep that context in mind. Now, these aren't the only swing state polls that are showing Trump slipping.
That's exactly right. If we were just talking about the New York Times, Sienna College, I'd say, you know what, hold on a second, hold on. You know me, Jessica. You know that I like to see confirmation of an individual poll. So there were Ipsos polls that were conducted in these same states, and I want you to look. This is an aggregate, of course, across Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. You go back to June, what'd you see? You saw Trump on average up by 2 points. Very similar to what we saw in the New York Times Siena College poll. Look at where we are now, the August margin between Harris and Trump. And look at what we see here. We see Harris up by 2 points. Again, no clear leader, but that 4-point movement, very similar to what we saw in the New York Times Siena College poll. And this is what we're seeing across the polling data. It's not just one poll. It's not just one pollster. It's across pollsters. It's across polls. And, of course, in these Great Lake battleground states that are going to be so important, we're seeing this 4-point move with, instead of seeing a small Republican lead, we're seeing a small Democratic Party lead. And in this particular...
And that's what the Democratic Party needs to win, as we know, with the way that things are set up, electoral college-wise, and the voting demographics in many of like the Midwestern states. The Democrats need the majority of votes, right? There's no way for them to win without the popular vote. And so these are exactly, we need to see across the board before going into November with Democrats leading just across
the case, a small Kamala Harris lead over Donald Trump, the reverse of what we were just seeing just 2 months ago.
Yeah, and of course, the reason we care about these particular states so much is because of the Electoral College and how this all is decided in the fall. What does this data mean for the Electoral College more broadly, and how that's playing out?
Yeah, so look, this is what we're talking about, the race to 270 electoral votes. And I want to give Kamala Harris those Great Lake battleground states where she was leading, although within the margin of error. We're talking about Wisconsin, we're talking Michigan, we're talking Pennsylvania. If we give those 3 states to Kamala Harris, even if she loses in Nevada, Arizona, and Georgia, which are far from guarantees, these, of course, were 3 states that Joe Biden carried last time around, but in which the Democrats have been falling a little bit short of their 2020 numbers, at least in recent data, at least when Joe Biden's in the race. But if we give Harris Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, look at that. She doesn't even need these Sun Belt battleground states. She gets...
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good map. It's a good map. Because the fact is Kamala's numbers are going up in these states that are technically, that they're giving, essentially, in this matchup, right? This sort of hypothetical. Her numbers are going up in those states, too. So she could very well, by November, be up in those states, which would give her even more margin for error in other places, or... just more paths to victory. This is it's all very positive.
These, of course, were 3 states that Joe Biden carried last time around, but in which the Democrats have been falling a little bit short of their 2020 numbers, at least in recent data, at least when Joe Biden's in the race. But if we give Harris Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, look at that. She doesn't even need these Sun Belt battleground states. She gets to exactly 270 electoral votes. So the fact is, when you see those polls in those Great Lake battleground states, and you see that Harris has turned the tide around from basically, Donald Trump.
Okay, hold on. Tell me this guy doesn't look like Jimmy Neutron, like came to life and then grew into an adult. Like this hair going on right now. Holy shit.
The electoral votes. So the fact is, when you see those polls in those Great Lake battleground states, and you see that Harris has turned the tide around from basically, Donald Trump being slightly ahead to now Harris being slightly ahead, that could be the entire ballgame. Even if she loses down south, if she wins up north, that's enough. That gets her to exactly 270 electoral votes, and that's why those New York Times Siena College polls, as well as those Ipsos polling data, why it means so much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now we're going to keep talking about the election here. There's a few clips of Kamala Harris either speaking at rallies or to reporters. Got to look at. Let's go to this NBC one first from 21 hours ago.
We will move forward and take on the biggest issues facing our nation. For example, the issue of immigration. So I was Attorney General of a border state. I went after the transnational gangs, the drug cartels, and human traffickers.
Here we go.
I prosecuted them in case after case, and I won. So I know what I'm talking about. We know our immigration system is broken, and we know what it takes to...
I gotta say, that rhetoric there is a little fucked, in my opinion. I think it'll play to certain people. But for her to blame the border problem on gangs and drug cartels, I think is pretty fucked. Right? To, you know, the way that she's doing this sort of, what's the word? Rather than being concerned about like the humanitarian crisis of it, she's sort of otherizing and sort of criminalizing all immigrants with this sort of rhetoric, in my opinion.
Fix it. Comprehensive reform that includes strong border security and an earned pathway to citizenship.
That's a good finish, though. Like, I'm, you know, half of that statement was good.
But Donald Trump does not want to fix this problem. Be clear about that. He has no interest or desire to actually fix the problem. He talks a big game about border security, but he does not walk the walk. Earlier this year, everybody here knows, earlier this year we had a chance to pass the toughest bipartisan border security bill in decades. But Donald Trump tanked the deal. Because he thought by doing that it would help him win an election. But when I am president, I will sign the bill.
I mean, she is technically right. And, like, Donald Trump did, if I recall correctly, somehow got involved in a bill in Congress while not being an elected representative of the United States government. Alright, let's go on to this clip. This is from a different rally. Actually, wait, this might have been the same rally. I take it back. This was Kamala Harris's response to pro-Palestinian protesters during one of these rallies. I think the same rally. Pretty sure.
An extraordinary number of folks who are here together because we love our country. We're here to fight for our democracy. Which includes respecting the voices that I think that we are hearing from. And let me just say this on topic of what I think I'm hearing over there. Let me just speak to that for a moment, and then I'm going to get back to the business at hand. So let me say, I have been clear. Now is the time to get a ceasefire deal and get the hostage deal done.
It's a decent response. I mean, she's very adamant about the ceasefire, and I think obviously that she's right. You know, she's not necessarily, you know, like going all out here, but it is a solid answer that I respect and that I will absolutely accept when it is really, you know, she's in the middle of a campaign rally. She's responding to protesters at a rally, and I mean, the fact that she was willing to do that and was like, remember, like everybody go back few months ago, just think back to some of those Some of those fucking commencement speeches and things with Biden, the way that he treated protesters, I'll take this over that literally any fucking day, please. Like, at least she's giving people respect. He literally said he did not care. Remember that? Remember when he said he literally would not even consider what it was people were saying? Ugh. God, I'm glad I don't have to look at that anymore. That's what I'm trying to get at here. Last Kamala clip. Let's go to this. This is from Forbes Breaking News. Breaking. Here we go. Look at that lilac suit.
Next week, and it'll be focused on the economy and what we need to do to bring down costs and also strengthen the economy overall.
Can you give us a sense of
reaction to the Israeli strike in Gaza today that killed at least 80 people? That's the death toll right now.
Yet again, there are far too many civilians who've been killed. I mean, Israel has a right to go after the terrorists that are Hamas, but as I have said many, many times, they also have, I believe, an important responsibility to avoid civilian casualties.
Madam Vice President, you've been saying that since October 7th, and that has been the administration's policy for many, many months now. As tens of thousands of civilians have been killed, I mean, there are people who are asking for limitations on arms to Israel, any kind of change. What do you say to those folks who are looking for more than we should look out for civilians?
Well, look, first and foremost, and the President and I have been working around this around the clock, we need to get the hostages out. We need a hostage deal, and we need a ceasefire. And I can't stress that strongly enough. It needs to get done. The deal needs to get done, and it needs to get done now.
on economy? I know you're going to speak.
Okay, rest of that is different question. Not my favorite answer, not gonna lie. You know, saying that Israel gets to go after Hamas just means that they get to keep doing what they've been doing, because that's what they've been saying they've been doing for 10 months now. So I think that talking point needs to go 100%. The rest of it, yeah, ceasefire deal needs to happen, hostages need to come out. All that's true. All that is true. I think what's slightly unfortunate in this particular situation, which is very unique, and I don't think it's ever happened before, I could be wrong, but the fact is as a presidential candidate right now, Vice President Kamala Harris still has to essentially stick to the talking points of the Biden administration. You know, her outwardly rebelling against the Biden administration would be taken, I think, real badly in general. And, you know, it's not something she's going to do, right? So that's something I keep thinking about every time I hear her talk right now, is that she still has to be vice president of the administration while not being in charge of the administration, but also running for president. It's a weird paradox of situations. Anyway, let's go here to wrap up the political talkings. Actually, it's not the last one. I take it back. I got 2 to do. Although this next one isn't political race talk, it's just politics related. Let's go to this, because there are concerns about Van Jones's brain. I'm not saying necessarily that these concerns are legitimate, but someone we all know and perhaps love has concerns about Van Jones, and me personally, I too.
This is also like I don't cannot tell you. We'll get demonetized if I actually say the words I really want to say about Van Jones. Do we have that video? F this guy so much. Really, this is like sicko stuff. This is sicko stuff. First of all, I don't need I don't need another Gentile telling me about that I'm anti-Semitic because I didn't support Shapiro. But this guy's just, it's unbelievable.
Do you think it was a little risky, though, Van, that she didn't go with Shapiro to kind of lock down Pennsylvania? I mean, yes, David Challenger was saying earlier, just because you pick him as your running mate doesn't mean you automatically win Pennsylvania. But I got to think it would have helped just a little bit.
Pause even the question. Pause the question for a second. I mean, look, you've just had your election expert on to say, there's really no evidence that he would help with Pennsylvania. Well, we really want to do this story. So I got to think that even though our expert says that there's no evidence he would help with Pennsylvania, I got to think that he would help Pennsylvania.
I don't want reality.
No.
Win Pennsylvania, but I got to think it would have helped just a little bit.
Hey, listen, the conservatives, the right wing, the Republicans, they were chewing their fingernails down to the knuckle because they were afraid of a Josh Shapiro. They were afraid of a Mark Kelly. They're not as afraid of this new governor because they think they can define
There
it.
is absolutely, this is just absurd. They're afraid of the juggernaut that is Mark Kelly? Are you kidding me?
Vacuum.
Are you kidding me? They weren't afraid of Shapiro or Kelly. That's absurd.
I wanted them so.
He's just a very scary man. Got that spacesuit. I don't know. I don't trust it.
Badly.
Go ahead.
Mark Kelly. They're not as afraid of this new governor because they think they can define him. So here's the challenge you've got in this party. And people don't want to talk about it. We got to talk about it. On the one hand, you have a lot of young people who are concerned about Gaza. You have a lot of Muslims and Arabs and others. They have not felt seen by the Biden administration. You start hearing that genocide joke. That was building. And so those folks needed to have a candidate that they could feel comfortable with. This helps them in that regard. But you also have anti-Semitism that's gotten marbled into this party. You can be for the Palestinians without being an anti-Jewish bigot, but there are some anti-Jewish bigots out there. And there's some disquiet now, and there has to be. How much of what just happened is...
This is just insane. This is just ridiculous from Van Jones here. There's a tiny sliver of very misguided people who have maybe said some ill thought through sentiments and statements about Jewish people. But that is so greatly overwhelmed by the numbers of people who are saying very normal, very non-anti-Semitic things about Palestinians and ceasefires and, an end to the occupation. Stuff like that. Stuff that's clearly not anti-Semitic, but it's much better for CNN here. And, Van Jones needs something to do now that he's sort of... what does he do now exactly? I know that he was part of the Obama administration at one point, and he was a CNN guy for a while, but I think now he's just sort of chilling. So he needs something to come out and tell people about, I guess. That's a weird choice. We have 30 likes now? That's a lot of likes. That is a lot of likes. Okay, So we go to this. Here is another. Here's another one. Here we go, chat. What is this? Number 3 this month that we've talked about already? I think we're getting close, or it's at least within the last few weeks. Let's go to PBS from 4 hours ago. Book restrictions in Indiana pressure public schools and libraries to remove books.
Illegal.
As the school year gets underway, 13 popular books were banned at Utah's public schools this week under a new law. It's one of many moves around the country threatening to reshape school libraries. Lee Gaines of WFYI reports on how in Indiana, teachers may even be criminalized for providing books deemed harmful.
Illegal.
It is a parent's decision what their child is going to be reading.
This is totally inappropriate for K-2 students to be discussing them.
It's a parent's decision. How does that play out? For instance, let's just do a hypothetical situation. For instance, say I was a parent and I went in and I said, I don't want my child learning math. Okay? I don't agree with math. Right? Math books, we don't have them in our house. So why should my child be reading math books? Does that child get to graduate? At the end of their, they go through all of school, lower, middle, and high school, do they get to graduate? Will it matter? Will that be important? Right? That is because that's basically what the argument that she made. Parents get to choose, not schools. Sort of makes schools superfluous, don't you think?
With anybody but their parents.
Last year, Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb signed a controversial book restriction bill that made 2 sweeping changes. First, it's now easier for community members to request the removal of books from schools that they believe are inappropriate.
Oh yeah, there's a necessary
Second, if a teacher or
thing.
school librarian provides a student with a book their parent believes is harmful, and a prosecutor agrees, they could be charged with a crime, and they can't use the book's educational value as a defense. Indiana Republican State Senator Jim Toms co-authored the initial legislation.
These were pornographic books, something you would see probably in...
Wow, pornographic? This guy and his repressed views are the problem with America. Having books that talk about your, like your sexuality in any way does not make them pornographic. Okay? Just because he finds them to be not his sort of thing doesn't make it pornographic.
Bookstores.
Efforts to restrict kids and teens' access to certain types of books are happening across the country. PEN America, a nonprofit that advocates for free expression, documented nearly 6,000 instances of book bans in 41 states and 247 public school districts over a 2-year period. 37% of the banned books included characters of color or themes of race and racism, and 36% included LGBTQ characters or themes.
Distinguished members of
So let's add those up. 73, and now there very well may be a Venn diagram between these two figures. So some portion of them may include both LGBTQ and racial themes or characters who aren't white. But let's just assume they don't for just 2 seconds. If you add these two together, that's 73, right? So 73% of banned books either included characters or topics about racism, or about LGBTQ themes or characters. Seems like these book bans are pretty specific about what they don't like.
LGBTQ characters or themes.
Distinguished members of the subcommittee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today.
PEN America's Jonathan Friedman says Indiana's law doesn't ban specific types of content from schools, but it does create a sense of fear and anxiety.
It doesn't outright ban specific types of content, but it's clearly doing it, whether or not you like it or whether or not you want to accept that. But that's what's happening right now. It doesn't matter if it's being said explicitly in the text. It's the way that this law is clearly being applied. It is clearly affecting groups of people who, if I recall correctly, are supposed to be protected by law from discrimination.
Among educators.
Now, no one is telling them you better not have X book or Y book or books with sexual content on the shelves, but it's clear that that kind of material is going to be targeted, and that the law that has passed is going to enable the targeting of that kind of content.
So there's a fear that this legislation is going to lead to the removal of books like that, either because parents complain about them or because educators worry that they'll get in trouble for including those types of books in their collection.
Well, maybe they should worry. Maybe educators should worry if they're doing it. Maybe it should have the chilling effect if it's going to put these kind of books in the hands of a minor child.
These kinds of books, you mean inclusive literature? Literature that includes things that you don't like colored people and the LGBTQ plus people. That's basically what he's saying. That they should be scared of including people that don't ascribe to my views and feelings.
Targeting
that's
of
the
books
America
prompted
that we
Indianapolis
are
author Leah
living
Johnson
in,
to open her own bookstore.
This is ridiculous.
Which stocks frequently banned titles.
In retrospect, I can identify that not having books that reflected my experience did deeply change the way I thought about myself and my position in the world.
Johnson is now trying to fill that gap by writing stories about queer Black girls. Her debut young adult novel, You Should See Me in a Crown, follows the story of a Black queer high school girl from Indiana. The book received critical acclaim, but it was also one of about 50 titles that were put under investigation by the Oklahoma Attorney General.
Oh yeah, wow. Of course that made it on the list of a Black LGBT person. A woman, for that matter, being, I mean, crowns? Come on, how? That's basically right. I mean, is that not the, like what in the fuck? How have we allowed this to even get to where it is now? Granted, these things are being done on a state-by-state basis, but it is insane that this is actually happening in the United States, a place where we're supposed to respect free speech. The people who are always complaining about free speech on the internet are actively suppressing speech everywhere else.
Because of complaints from parents and conservative groups that they contained obscene material.
There's no content in the book that could, even realistically, be viewed as obscene, except for the fact that it is queer. And to a lot of people, queerness is inherently obscene.
The Oklahoma Attorney General dropped the investigation. But for Johnson, the current surge in book challenges and the state laws that support them are an existential threat.
It's not about the removal of books from shelves. It's about the removal of queer people from public life. It's a
it's active repression is what it is. Specific groups of people. Oh, this fucking douchebag. Here we go.
Resident of Noblesville, Indiana, who describes himself as a Christian missionary. Boyd told me he thinks books that feature diverse representations of gender and sexuality could be harmful to kids.
In a public library,
harmful.
In a Christian nation, I think that, my...
Not a Christian nation. It's explicitly not that. That's kind of the whole point of certain aspects of our supposed Constitution.
In a Christian nation, I think that, my opinion, I feel like the standard's been set, and if we're going to be a Christian nation, we need to abide by the Christian.
We're not going to be. We're not going to be. What does that even mean? If we're going to be a Christian nation, when he says that, when people say sentences like that, it gets like the hair standing up on my back. Not literally, but it gets me concerned as fuck. Like saying stuff like that. Wait, how many people? Let me look this up because I know it's a huge fucking number. It's a huge fucking number. Oh boy. Hold on, I'm just gonna. That's not the best way to do it. It is, yeah, it is his. That's yeah, it is his opinion. He didn't say that. So, according to this poll from Gallup, in 2023, if you combine Jewish, other religions, and people unaffiliated with organized forms of religion, you've got 22, 28, you got 30% of the United States, or at least of this poll. So 30% of the United States, non-Christian. So what's the plan? You gonna exodus 100 million people? Because that's statements like that are insinuating things like that. If we're going to be a Christian nation, it's like like you can't do it. Can't do it without jettisoning 100 people into the Pacific. 100 million people, excuse me.
Standard.
But Boyd's perspective isn't one shared by everyone in the Indianapolis suburbs.
My name is Max. I'm 16.
Max heard that their local public library board approved a new rule in late 2022 to ban books that contain sex, drug, and alcohol use, repeated profanity, and violence from the children and teen sections in the library system. The policy led to the relocation of nearly 2,000 books from the youth section to the adult collection. Max described it as outrageous. We're not showing Max's face to shield them from potential harassment.
The first book that I read wasn't the reason I realized I was trans. It was just nice to see, once I realized that, and I see that represented in a book. So now that it's not being represented, it might be harder for people to realize or even just feel safe in their own identity, and that's my concern.
The American Library Association documented over 4,200 unique book titles targeted for censorship in 2023. That represents a 65% increase over 2022 numbers. And
that should be a hugely concerning. That's like a huge red flag. Like, this is getting worse and worse. This is not something it's not some sort of fringe case. We've talked about this 3 times in the last month, at least, in 3 different states. And it's clearly ramping up rather than just, it's certainly not plateauing. It is getting worse and worse. It's not a figment of your imagination. It's real. Okay. Well, I hope everybody has been enjoying the stream so far. If you haven't already, hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Still trying to get those subscriber numbers on YouTube up to 500, as that is the number necessary on YouTube to get myself paid by this goddamn company. Now, if you've done both of those things already, but you still want to help support this channel even further, well, why don't you go on Patreon? Become a galactic producer. For just a few dollars a month, you can help make sure that this show keeps happening. Alright, chat, enjoy the break, and I will be right back. Okay. I'm back. And it's time for the environmental news. Seems low on levels. Alright, let's start it off this way. Talk about wildfires, but first, let's talk about wildfires in a slightly different way than we usually do. This is PBS Origins from 6 months ago. The Inconvenient Truth of Smokey Bear.
It's nice to get out of the city and be in the great outdoors, like my people used to. Actually, no, not really. Before contact, indigenous communities used to manage and steward their lands every day. One example is what I'm about to do. Make a fire. They use fire to manage their environment. Today, it's called controlled or prescribed burns, but back then it was just called life. Fire was used to promote the growth of useful plants and crops, which would increase the population of animals. Those burns would also destroy the stuff that fuels wildfires. You know, the dead overgrowth, etc., etc. But if we're all about prescribed burns now, why was it originally outlawed?
This is a People's History of Native America with me, Ty LeClaire.
It's Smokey Bear, along with his slogan, "Only you can prevent wildfires." The government's PSA to say, hey, see this wildfire? This is your fault. While the spark is usually caused by humans, a mismanaged forest is primed to be engulfed by flames. So, what if I told you that at the heart of this partially clothed bear's rhetoric is another continuation of the disrespect and disregard of Native American science and a contributor to climate change? Well, back in 1911, Congress passed the Weeks Act, which granted the federal government the power to purchase private land for the purpose of conserving forests and the water supply. Part of conserving forests meant protecting the land from fire, aka fire suppression, which effectively banned cultural burns and other fire-based land management tactics historically used by tribal communities. The blanket policy of the early 20th century was fire suppression, which meant America's forest lands were allowed to grow for over 20 years, untended in many ways it had been. But the US government became more concerned about their forest management policies when they thought these vast spaces could be targets for enemy fire in World War II. In February 1942, a Japanese...
Hold on. Not gonna watch this whole thing. Let's get to Smokey.
Inferno, and a real-life black bear cub emerged from the fire. It was the Taos Pueblo Snowballs that rescued this badly burned bear and, along with the local fire crew, rushed it to a vet in Santa Fe. He was later dubbed Smokey Bear in honor of his cartoon counterpart. Since then, the dialogue around fires has been zero tolerance, resulting in
fires in California due to climate change.
The state's deadliest fire in history, and that California needs to learn to adapt.
You see, traditional stewardship of lands and resources is now discussed in Western science as traditional ecological knowledge, or TEK. But now TEK is seen as an alternative to Western methods of forest management. However, it's so much more than that. TEK is the knowledge that can only come from being indigenous to the land and its specific ecosystem. Actually, I have a friend who loves fire. Not a pyro, but someone who knows more than me in both TEK and science. Dr. Melinda Adams.
Hi, Ty.
So, I'm out in the forest trying to light a fire, but got distracted by Smokey Bear signs. Can you please break it down for me?
In order to build public perception of the dangers of wildfire, because when settlers first arrived, they saw indigenous peoples placing fire to the lands but maybe didn't catch enough of the observation to see all the benefits. So they developed this ingrained fear of fire that has since been passed along and inherited by different generations. So that's why you see large-scale wildfires and people's reaction is fear.
Can you tell us a little bit about the work you do surrounding TEK?
What I do is very layered, and that's very different from how maybe a Western scientist approaches their work, how it's mainly siloed in one specific species, but mine tries to encompass a lot of our cultural ways and learnings and teachings.
Yeah, I like the contrast between Western science and indigenous lifeways. Can you expand?
This idea of terra nullius, which was used as a tool of colonization, that before settlers came over, land was blank, land was unowned, land was not taken care of by indigenous peoples. And that nothingness that it presents, it directly erases indigenous presence and stewardship techniques and land care from the areas that you're suggesting had no human contact.
What other forms of TEK are often overlooked?
I think oftentimes waters is not necessarily focused on when we think of traditional ecological knowledges, but we have people that have been guided by maritime calendars and in close relationships with waterscapes.
Like?
Yeah. And I think this is interesting because we've definitely talked about controlled fires in the past, prescribed burns. Never have we used the phrasing or the phraseology of TEK or traditional. Sorry, what was the? I just forgot what that stood for. Oh my god, I'm a dumb person. I think it's environmental. I want to say traditional environmental knowledge. I get it. Oh my god. What was I saying though? And, you know, there's definitely benefits and drawbacks to this, but it does, in fact, if done properly, it is, in fact, helpful in avoiding massive large fires, wildfires like we've been seeing. But for a while, it was, in fact,
so much of indigenous history
banned. Whoopsies. And since then, the government and fire services have sort of changed their tune around that and started trying it themselves. Koyaanisqatsi? Koyaanisqatsi? I don't know what that is. Okay, now let's talk about some of the out of control and utterly massive wildfires that have been going on. And specifically, the Park Fire. If you recall, the Park Fire, last time we talked about it, had gone from 6th to 5th largest wildfire in California's wildfire history. And 8 days ago, as we haven't talked about it in a week, which feels crazy. There has been a lot that's been going on though, so I guess that's possible. But 8 days ago, it became the 4th largest wildfire in California history.
Meanwhile, this morning, crews do continue to make progress on the Park Fire, but it has now become the 4th largest fire in California state history. These are new numbers just in. The fire has burned nearly 398,000 acres in Butte and Tehama counties. The majority of that has been in Tehama County. CAL FIRE says crews have reached 24% containment. 540 structures have been destroyed. More than 6,000 crew members are assigned to the.
So yeah, these numbers have been going up and up. This is only from 8 days ago. So let's go to more recent history. This is from just yesterday.
Meanwhile, the Park Fire has now burned more than 428,000 acres throughout 4 different California counties. CAL FIRE says the Park Fire is 34% contained. Firefighters saw fewer spot fires overnight last night compared to other nights this week. The CAL FIRE expects lower temperatures and higher humidity over the weekend to help limit fire spread in some areas. However, increasing winds are cause for concern. More than 6,300 people are assigned to the Park Fire today. And for the latest information on acreage, containment, campground, and road closures, and so much more, be sure to download the Newswatch 12 app and sign up.
Okay. We don't need to download the Newswatch 12 app. Probably unnecessary. Unless you live in California, then I guess do that. I don't know. I don't work for ABC. You do what you want. Oh no, poor California. It's not like large. All right, let's not have a comparative. Let's not have a comparative wildfire game between countries. Okay, unnecessary. Everybody's on fire. It's bad. And yeah. Just because we're not talking about it today doesn't mean we didn't talk about it for what felt like weeks, up until I don't know, the last week or so. Felt like every single day we were talking about a different Canadian wildfire. There's no hierarchy of wildfires here. That's not what we're here for. Everybody's suffering matters. Write that down. Canada will win. We can't. Wow. Okay. Okay. Okay, this is the most recent video on the Park Fire. This is from 10 hours ago. Cron 4.
Well, wildfire season is heating up as the Park Fire continues to grow, becoming the 4th largest fire in California history. It's now just under 430,000 acres with only 34% containment. Joining us right now is CAL FIRE's PIO on the Park Fire. That's Jay Tracy. Hi, Jay. How is it going out there?
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me.
Tell us a little bit about the firefighting efforts. We keep hearing these horrible numbers about the 4th largest in history. Where is it burning? Where is it moving? And what is being threatened?
Sure. Well, good news is I'll give you some numbers real quick. We're still dealing with a fire that's right at about 429,000 acres. It is 36% contained. We still have 6,000 personnel up here that are doing their best to put this thing to bed. The fire predominantly is burning in the northeast section of the fire footprint up in the Mill Creek area. But some good news from our fire behavioral analysts and some of the weather information that we got this morning from our meteorologist says that we should see some decreased temperatures and a little more humidity in the area there that the fire's going. So that's good news for us, and it allows our guys to get in there, and guys and gals to get in there and do some good work.
I know.
So yeah, as long as the weather cooperates, they should be able to start getting this fire more under control. I mean, the last time we were talking about this fire, it was only, what was it, 5 or 10% under control. So that's a huge increase in slowing this fire down here and containing this blaze. You almost died in a recently died in a fire, Badash? Wow, that sounds horrifying. I'm glad you're all right. 34% is not great, but it's better than 10%. And it has slowed down in terms of how much it's growing. Like, at least from what I'm seeing from the numbers, because it was at what was it? It was at like 280,000 plus acres over a week ago, well over a week ago now. And didn't increase that much, maybe 10%, right? I think that's what they said. It got to like about 320,000. The fact is, it started as a tiny fire and grew to hundreds of thousands of acres within like 72 hours. was 6 years ago. Okay. Either way, glad you're all right. When you said that, I thought that maybe we were like literally covering one of the fires that you... Because I feel like I haven't seen Bad Ash around in a little while. I thought maybe you had been adversely affected by one of the recent fires we saw. Like maybe like the Jasper fire or something like that. I don't know. My mind just went to all sorts of places suddenly when I saw that. Good to know that you survived that. Otherwise, I'd be talking to your ghost, which would be weird. I guess it'd be cool in its own way, but I think probably better that you're alive. Let's go to PBS again. Not Origins though. PBS NewsHour from a day ago. Arizona's scorching summer kills hundreds and threatens the way of life for many, many more. Yeah, and we've been talking about how hot this summer has been. Some places much more than others, especially the western United States, which was just annihilated by heat in the beginning part of summer here. And already hundreds of people in Arizona have died. Just Arizona from heat. I think it's like close to 500.
It has been a deadly summer. Extreme heat from across the country has killed dozens of people. The Biden administration recently announced new rules to protect workers and communities from extreme weather, but it may not come soon enough. In Maricopa County, Arizona, which includes Phoenix, there have been nearly 450 suspected heat-related deaths this summer. Stephanie Sy has this report from the Valley of the Sun.
Summer steamrolled into Phoenix fast and furious. NOAA concluding it's been one of the hottest summers on record. And heat has been suspected in hundreds of deaths, including that of a 10-year-old boy on a hike.
97.3.
The outdoors can be dangerous at this time of year. Living outdoors is even more so. At any given time each summer, some 9,500 people are unhoused in Maricopa County. 49-year-old Jerome Lee is one of them.
I mean, I was dizzy, I had a headache. This heat is hot over here in Phoenix.
Lee got a saline IV to rehydrate him. He'd been drinking. Alcohol can increase the risk of heat illness.
We're hoping we can help save some lives with the IV hydration.
Perla Puebla works with the nonprofit organization Circle the City, which this summer is trying to meet the most vulnerable where they are.
We did encounter a lot of patients last year that needed IV hydration, but they didn't want to go to the emergency room. They didn't want to leave their belongings behind.
Yeah, I mean, of course. Of course people don't want to go to... Nobody wants to go to the emergency room. Especially because of the cost. But homeless people? If you asked any group of people, I feel like, in the United States, I feel like homeless people would come up as being the #1 people not wanting to be at the emergency room.
This year, 645 people died in Maricopa County from the heat, the most ever recorded. Almost half the victims were homeless, and over 60% had alcohol or drugs in their system.
Heat is the most readily observable and most attributable adverse health effect of a warming planet.
Physician John Balbus is the director of the Biden administration's new Office of Climate Change and Health Equity.
How bad are things? Has there been like a sea change in the risk here?
The really disturbingly high death tolls that we were talking in places like Maricopa County are saying that the outdoor spaces are becoming uninhabitable now. In places like the desert Southwest, where the temperatures are getting so high and the heat waves are lasting so long and those minimum temperatures are so high, that people who are suffering in our society, suffering from poverty, suffering from mental illness, are at highest risk
Another high-risk group, outdoor workers. Filiberto Laris's job involves ferrying food to planes around the tarmac of Phoenix's main airport, where temperatures can run 3 to 5 degrees hotter than surrounding areas. His truck doesn't have air conditioning.
We have to stay there in our cabin. When you go to shopping, when you go to the parking, how is your car? How hot it is.
He's done this.
Yeah. I mean, come on. Cars get insanely hot. They just sit there in the sun, baking. No air is coming out of it. It's like an oven. But instead of gas, it's the sun's rays. 90 degrees is your limit, I see. Technically, that is also the recommended temperature for people to be concerned about heat-related stress and other things. We looked at the data on this recently. They came to the conclusion that it's right around that area where all people, not just people with health conditions, should watch themselves while doing strenuous activities and pretty much anything. Hold on, we just want to look at this part of it.
This mobile home was built in 1973.
Our last electricity bill was over $350 for this small trailer.
Like when it's this hot, I've got it set at 78 and it's running 82, 83, sometimes all the way up to 85 in here, which isn't the end of the world, but when you've got, your air conditioner's running that long, it's going to hurt at the end of the month.
Trying to stay safe from heat while conserving their limited finances is a challenge.
We don't go out to eat. I try to buy everything on sale. We don't buy a lot of extra stuff. We don't treat ourselves.
And to make matters worse, Trinell is on disability, and Brian was unable to work until recently because of a kidney transplant.
Yeah, and this is why climate change, just one of the myriad reasons that we go through around here on the reg, of why people who are either what's the word? God damn it, my brain just broke. Who have like adverse health conditions, or who are on the low end of income, or just generally, climate change will affect them more. It is just a guarantee that that's what's going to happen, especially with the way that our system is currently set up. If you don't have the money, you're going to have to you're gonna have to deal with things differently, and it's sad because these two, they are both of those things. They have health problems and they don't make a lot of money. Okay, let's go on. Let's talk about Tropical Storm Debbie. It's in the title. And it is making its way up the coast right now and wreaking havoc. Havoc including, but not limited to, tornadoes and flooding. Let's start with tornadoes. What do you say? Let's go to WRAL from 12 hours ago. Drone 5 flies over Springfield Middle School in Lucama after tornado ravages the area. I guess that means that the teacher can't grade the homework. I'm assuming. Okay. Debbie is being a real downer. Wow. Well played. Well played. Let's go here. This is ABC Philadelphia from 20 hours ago. EF1 tornado rips through Delaware with peak wind speeds of 95 miles per hour.
Drone 6 flew over some of the damage caused by that confirmed tornado that touched down near Marshallton, Delaware last night. Officials say it was on the ground for more than a mile with winds near 100 miles an hour. People at a nearby shopping center captured some of that tornado on camera before it blew off parts of an Acme roof. Action News reporter Brianna Smith live in Mill Creek tonight. Brianna, boy, a lot to clean up there today.
That's right, Brian. It's going to take days to remove the mess, especially here on West Rubino Drive. Earlier today, we saw this homeowner cleaning up after the tornado ripped off sections of her roof and then her entire backyard fence. You can see parts of it laying on the ground. And then just across the way, you can see this gigantic tree split in half and then unfortunately landed on 3 cars. You may be able to see some of those cars under the branches. And then just to make matters worse, hundreds of people are without power. One resident quickly captured video of the tornado as it tore through Mill Creek, Delaware. The National Weather Service says the EF1 tornado touched down in Marshallton with peak wind speeds reaching 95 miles per hour.
It was just flattened. Everything was picked up, twirled, and then, and thrown.
Glenda Sterling, who lives on West Rubino Drive in Mill Creek, says the powerful storm destroyed her backyard and parts of her house, including the roof.
But God is good. It'll all get worked out. Everything. I'll get a new roof. I'll get a new fence. New windows.
She just starts listing stuff off.
Trees that landed on houses.
God does
These 4
nice.
vehicles and power lines.
Sometimes you're watching it on TV and saying, "Wow."
But Jesus was a carpenter, so I guess that checks out. I don't know. I feel like it's going to be the insurance company though, not God.
Across the country, and you're feeling for people, in whatever state. But now when it hits home, of course, it's hitting home a little bit, closer to the heart.
The Delmarva Power spokesperson says about 2,500 customers in Newcastle County lost service.
We know how frustrating, and difficult it can be to be without service, especially during the summer months, and just appreciate everyone's patience as we continue to work through the restoration efforts today.
The company, along with local leaders, say they'll continue to monitor the remnants of Debbie while restoring power in neighborhoods.
So far, we're very
Okay, so that was a tornado in, what was it? Virginia and Delaware? Wait, no. North Carolina and Delaware? So I think that's right. Where were we? I lost my place. Alright, yeah, now... Well, let's talk about flooding. Started this off with NBC News from a day ago. Parts of Mid-Atlantic and Northeast hit hard by the remnants of Debbie.
Tonight, Debbie strikes the Northeast.
Oh, that shut is moving.
Water rising rapidly in upstate New York and northern Pennsylvania, swallowing communities and washing out roads.
This is how high the water on the bridge has gotten in the last 10 minutes.
Flash flooding emergencies have been declared.
This ain't good at all.
First responders are desperate for help from surrounding areas to assist with rescues by water and air. National Guard helicopters have been brought in to look for people on roofs.
Good God.
Washing away their house. They're holding on to the trees trying to...
Seeing it in front of the lake there really, I mean, shows you just how violent I feel like that water is.
Water and air. National Guard helicopters have been brought in to look for people on roofs.
The water is washing away their house. They're holding on to the trees trying to keep from being swept away.
Maria Southard says she was there when floodwater took out a bridge, forcing her to turn around.
The water is all running right through the businesses again, and it's awful.
What were you feeling when you were seeing all this?
It's really heartbreaking.
In Maryland, coastal businesses underwater.
Water up to my knees.
And dangerous flash floods in South Carolina.
Tornado on the ground.
Tornadoes were reported across Virginia, Delaware, and North Carolina.
Oh my gosh, it looks like a war zone.
It sounded like a freight train was driving through the woods.
NBC's George Solis is in Pennsylvania.
The roof of this church here in Harrisburg ripped right off by an apparent tornado. The relentless rains drenching everything in sight. The building will more than likely have to be condemned.
All of this impacting travel across the country as we head into one of the last.
They snuck another tornado in there on us. So yeah, multiple states getting hit by tornadoes here. From a Cat 1 hurricane. It's not a Cat 1 anymore, it's a tropical depression. And honestly, at this point, considering the NOAA's predictions, like, either they were way off, or, you know, the rest of this season is going to be way worse than what we're looking at right now. Which is wild. I mean, what we've already seen has been pretty crazy. Okay, this was from, where is this? This is near Syracuse, New York. This was 13 hours ago.
I don't never do a live video, but you guys have to see this. This is South Canisteo, underwater. All these houses. Nobody can get through. This river over here.
Oh my god, on the same side. The other side.
There was just about 100 hay bales that went down here.
This is, what the fuck? This woman is just on this road completely surrounded by water. This is bananas.
This pine tree is gonna be next. This is so crazy.
She called it. That thing's going.
Oh, there it goes. Wow. Water is so powerful.
Like, what in the fuck? This is insane.
Couple trees over here too. Oh man.
Your question is, why is she just standing there? For the likes, of course. For the insta likes or whatever. I don't know. I mean, what else do you do? I mean, you can't be. I mean, you look at the property. It's not like you can go into the house. The house appears to be getting. If that's where she lives, I don't know. I'm just assuming, making a lot of assumptions here. But I mean, look at this. Are you gonna go inside? Hold on. Let me go back. You're gonna go inside there. I mean, fuck. The thing might just get swept away. Who knows how old that foundation is? Oh, look, that one's going. I mean, I think that's a garage, but still.
Wow. Both sheds are moving down there.
You're right. She could have tried to get away from the water, but then we wouldn't have this video. So it's like a... What do you call it? I can't think of the actual word I want, but it's a difficult situation. Which resulted in us seeing just the most Not the most, but some of the most ridiculous looking flooding we've seen recently. Saying a lot, considering how much flooding we see. It's a catch-22. Yeah, thank you. It's a paradoxical situation. You know, she could have left, but then we wouldn't have the footage, right? And yeah. Oh, God. It's a conundrum. That's what it is. Okay, let's go to New Jersey, where cleanup is underway in Edgewater Park.
Folks in Edgewater Park, New Jersey, the threat of more flooding, a serious concern today. That community, as you might recall, was hit really hard by flooding earlier this week. Now residents are bracing for more as the cleanup still continues. Action News reporter Maggie Kent spoke with flood-weary residents there today. She's live in Edgewater Park now with an update. Maggie.
Yeah, Brian, these pumps are working in overtime. They want to clear out any of those floodwaters that are still remaining in this pond here by all these homes. This is what overflowed Tuesday and Wednesday, causing all of this damage inside this senior living facility.
It looks dry, but it's not. It is not dry. You can smell it.
The smell of molten carpet and baseboards fills Elaine Smith's living room. She was one of many in the Silver Park West community flooded out by torrential rain earlier this week.
The water was up to the baseboards, ankle high.
Milton Moore is hard at work cleaning up.
We're taking up carpet and pad. We're taking out damaged flooring. We're cutting drywall, taking out insulation, just getting everybody dried out and disinfected.
He's the owner of Chosen Restoration.
Oh, God damn it.
And the phone has been ringing off the hook thanks to damaging storms.
From Delaware, Newcastle, Claymont, Wilmington, so all over because there were a lot of
My
tornadoes
browser
and stuff,
is
last night in
just
Delaware.
doing whatever it wants
A few days
now
ago,
again.
strong storms brought flash flooding to Willingboro.
It's not
77
Edgewater
flooded
Park
out
now, it's
vehicles were
in Water
evacuated
Park.
in the Burlington County area. In Riverside,
Wow.
cars were completely flooded out in Mill at Riverside parking lots. Garages were awash as well. Residents are preparing for another round of rain.
And then we're getting more today, so I hate to see what happens now.
Wow, I literally can't stop.
This is a senior
I can't stop the
community,
video.
55 and up. A lot
Let me
of them
stop-
dealing with
let
the
me
flood
stop the
damage,
video,
but
please.
many of them do not have flood insurance. They never expected to have something like this happen, so it's an extra blow considering many of them are on a fixed income. All of this coming
my
at
God.
quite a high cost. We're live in Edgewater Park, New Jersey. Maggie Kent, Channel 6 Action News. Brian.
Okay, Maggie, thank you.
It's just gonna go to the next video that I have set up because it's totally fucking hell. Hold on, let me try something. It's not even gonna do that. It's just paused now. Cool. Oh wait, no, it's not. Oh, wait, it's working now. I fixed it. Maybe I fixed it? Edgewater Park. Now, Edgewater Park is not a misnomer. It doesn't appear. Which may be shocking to you. But it does appear to be on the edge of water. So why people wouldn't have flood insurance here is a little bit strange to me. It's on the... What is this? This is... Like... What is this bay? This is like one of New Jersey's biggest bays. Okay. We should just get rid of insurance if the government isn't going to take climate change seriously. That's an interesting strategy. Chester County residents. Chester County. Is that in Pennsylvania? I think it's in Pennsylvania. Chester County residents displaced due to flooding from Debbie.
The drenching rains dropped by Debbie left several Chester County neighborhoods inundated. This is the scene at one hard-hit apartment complex in Avondale. Water filling the basement. This happened, we're told, in a matter of minutes. Action News reporter Charles Watson live at that complex tonight. Charles, going to be a lot of drying out there this weekend.
Yeah, that's right, Brian. In fact, you can probably see cleanup efforts are already underway here behind me as folks try to clear out the floodwater that submerged portions of their homes last night. And neighbors say they're hoping they can get the mess inside cleaned up fairly quickly so they can get back to living their lives. It's the start of a big cleanup for folks who live on 1st Street in Avondale, Chester County. This after powerful storms swept through the area and flooded this neighborhood for the second time since January.
The family is scared to come back.
Saravana Karthik says the deluge took him by surprise. He says within 2 hours, his street and his basement were filled with several feet of water, forcing him and his family to evacuate their home.
They brought a boat, life jacket, and
I'm pretty sure it's pronounced deluge. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say deluge.
that's there. And from there, we have two friends. They came and helped us.
The nightmare continued at the apartment complex next door, where dozens of people were displaced after water seeped into their building. A neighbor shared this photo of the ground floor submerged in murky water. The American Red Cross, which is on the ground today, says it opened a shelter and has taken in more than 40 people as it assesses the full extent of the damage.
For right now, we've got food, we've got a place for them to stay, and we're taking care of their immediate needs.
Jin Hong said,
well, thankfully, they have enough space right now in shelters to take care of the people who've been displaced from this flooding in this particular area. You're telling me it's not pronounced deluge and I'm not losing my mind? That's good. It makes me feel better. Because I was like, dude, if I'm the only person that's been saying deluge this whole time, then wow, I've just been living a lie. Just living a lie.
Illegal.
Okay. Let's go to this. This is from CBS Evening News from an hour ago, discussing a combination of topics that we talk about a lot, and at least one that we're talking about right now. According to them, taxpayers bear the cost of protecting high-end coastal communities from hurricanes.
This week, Hurricane Debbie left a trail of destruction from Florida up the East Coast. Damage is estimated to be as high as $2 billion, and hurricane season is nowhere near over. As CBS's Stephen Stock reports, taxpayers are paying a stiff price to protect high-end coastal communities.
Every 4 years or so on North Carolina's coast, Wrightsville Beach business owners like Jeff DeGroat have to put up with a construction project on the beach.
This is a necessary program that has to be done in coastal communities for survival as well as safety.
The median price on these properties, $1.8 million, an investment protected by this. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers pumps 100 dump trucks worth of sand an hour through a 3-mile-long pipe, working around the clock, 2.5 months. Sand. At a project cost of about $15 million.
The main disadvantage is cost, but
I just want to hear that again.
In price on these properties, $1.8 million, an investment protected by this. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers pumps 100 dump trucks worth of sand an hour through a 3-mile-long pipe, working
100 dump trucks of sand per hour. I assume that's every day. I'm assuming they're not going 24 hours a day. But even if they're doing like 12 hours a day, that is what, 1,200 dump trucks an hour every day, just to keep these these places here, that seems like a weird use of resources.
Around the clock, 2.5 months.
Around the clock.
Project
Never mind, 24 hours a day.
Of about $15 million.
I don't know how that's even possible.
The main disadvantage is cost, but the advantages outweigh the disadvantages.
Travel just a few miles inland to Wilmington, where there's an affordable housing crisis, a shortage of some 28,000 rentals and homes.
That's a lot of money to pump sand on the beach.
Retired Air Force Specialist Willie Holmes has struggled to repair his home and shares a different perspective.
It's just totally amazing that people would think that would be the best way to spend money when you got so much poverty around.
Long Beach on Long Island, New York is an example of what can happen when there's no beach renourishment. After Superstorm Sandy destroyed more than 1,000 homes here, the Corps renourished and built up the beach.
What we found is that where you had a stable, well-maintained beach, berm, and dune system, the damages were extremely less than where you did not.
They were extremely less? I don't think that's the way you're supposed to say that.
That total cost to taxpayers after Sandy, $111 million. And CBS News calculated that over the last century, federal taxpayers have funded more than 2,500 of these projects, costing more than $10 billion nationwide.
From a public policy point of view,
I guess you can say that. I just never I hear people, like, I'm trying to assess that, and maybe I'm wrong on that. It just sounds weird the way he said it.
Is this a good use of tax dollars? I would say no.
Andy Coburn leads a team of scientists at Western Carolina University concerned about the policy. Who pays and who benefits?
I would say there is an inequitable distribution of benefits and costs.
He sees two solutions. Beach property owners pay for the sand, or strategic retreat, allowing some beaches to erode and homes to be lost.
Why are we spending public money to protect somebody's private, risky investment?
Ultimately,
yeah, it's a great question because, yeah, capitalism. I thought, but now, apparently not. No. It's very frustrating. I feel like the very same people are the sort of people that, you know, are saying stuff like, oh, the environment is fine. Right? I'm sure there's a few environmentalists in this crowd, but I don't know. Be on a $10 million house on the beach. How much of an environmentalist are you? I've lost my place again. Why am I doing this to myself all the time? Oh, right. That's why I'm thrown off. So I threw this in the middle of all this. We're not done talking about Hurricane Sandy, which is actually post-tropical storm Andy. I just called it Andy. Debbie, sorry. Post-tropical storm Debbie. Good God. I am not on my shit right now. Let's go to Canada, where tropical storm Sandy. I keep saying Sandy. Why do I keep saying Sandy? Because we were just talking about Sandy. God damn it. Why? Why can't I talk with words? We're gonna do this one more time. Post-tropical storm Debbie hits Atlantic Canada with heavy rain, flooding. Places like, I don't know, Montreal, Quebec.
In advance of the center of what's now post-tropical storm Debbie, there's been a deluge of rain in eastern Canada. In Montreal, water gushed out of storm sewers. Some commuters forced to abandon vehicles stalled by knee-high water levels. This shelter downtown is desperately trying to dry out after downpours caused flooding and spoiled food donations.
You wish that you weren't doing this over and over again, and yet, here we are.
All the rain caused a tricky morning commute in Toronto.
With the heavy rain at times, we are seeing flooding and ponding on many parts of the highways.
The city on edge after severe flash flooding last month. Debbie's pending arrival triggered rain warnings throughout Quebec and Ontario. Environment Canada telling residents in affected areas to watch for flooding and washouts. The storm's worst effects, though, in the United States, where the devastation has moved north. 7 people are now reported killed. The latest in Rockingham County, North Carolina, where a tree fell on a mobile home while a woman was inside. Tornado warnings had been activated in the state. This middle school in Wilson County torn up by a twister, the building luckily empty at the time. Debbie's trail of destruction means lengthy repair and recovery from impassable roads and
That's 2 schools that got hit by tornadoes. That's a completely different school, I think, than we looked at. Let's go here. Is this Global News too? Yes. Tropical Storm Debbie drenches Montreal with record-setting rain.
Where do you start? The Soren family assessed the devastating damage done to their home on Friday night. Their basement was completely submerged, their living room waterlogged, the garage a total disaster, the entire street overtaken by water.
When we left our house, the water was up to here on my shorts. If you look at the car, that's how high the water got. And no, my wife and I don't park like that. Both our cars were lifted and pushed over to the side from the water.
The remnants of Tropical Storm Debbie dropped up to 170 millimeters of rain on Montreal, the most the city has ever seen in one day. Sewer systems could not keep up, and water poured into basements in several neighborhoods. This street in Kirkland near Montreal's western tip was hit hard. It seemed like everyone was dragging waterlogged items to the curb.
We had 2 cars, but neither one of them are drivable, so I don't have a car and I don't have a house to live in.
It was definitely really scary and probably the most helpless I've ever felt.
Major highways were temporarily paralyzed, including the Trans-Canada. In Laval, this hotel parking lot became a lake. The Laurentians and...
Hold on. There's an entire line of people going the wrong way trying to get out who are also out of their cars. Oh my god. Now that is wild.
Canada. In Laval, this hotel parking lot became a lake. The Laurentians and Lanaudière regions north of Montreal saw landslides. About 300 people evacuated due to overflowing rivers. More than 100 roads washed out.
There are some people that's isolated from their house because the roads are impacted. So we're talking about 1,200 people that are isolated.
It was like up to here, so...
Back in Kirkland, the water has mostly receded, and now residents hope the damage to their homes and cars will be completely covered by insurance. But answers could take time, as providers are getting inundated with calls.
I've never seen it that strong, you know.
Brand new renovated basement. I did it myself. The water was up to here.
One neighbor who did not want to appear on camera used his heavy-duty pumps to help people drain their basements.
You wonder if the flooding cleaned the filth from Parliament. Hard to say. Hard to say. Also depends on what you mean by filth. Although usually floods don't really clean buildings so much. Usually they make them dirtier. Debbie knocked out your internet. God damn. It's fucked up. Let's go to Asia. Specifically, to the South China Sea. This is from the South China Morning Post from a day ago. China confirms natural gas find in the South China Sea. Oh boy, here we go. Oh wait, I forgot. I gotta read. I gotta read this, and I should probably turn this sound down. China has uncovered a major gas find. First announced in June, the find has since been reviewed, and China said Lingshui 36-1 is the world's first ultra-shallow. Hold on, sorry. World's first ultra-shallow gas field in ultra-deep waters. 100 billion is the estimated size in cubic meters of the Lingshui 36-1 natural gas deposit. 10 million the daily output in cubic meters expected for the Lingshui 36-1 site. China is the world's largest importer of natural gas. The discovery could boost China's energy security. But mining gas and oil there could worsen tensions in the area. That's not all. It could also be terrible for the environment. Oh boy. This is not what, this is really not what the world needed. Damaging methane is to the environment, most specifically to, in terms of its detrimental effect on global warming. And, you know, we don't need China finding the world's largest ultra shallow, deep sea, whatever find right now. I mean, sure, yeah, it could also add to tensions in the sea, as I think it's technically in a disputed part of the South China Sea. But that's the least of my concerns around this, even though it could possibly cause problems now that I think about it more and more. But really, we just need less of this. Oh yeah, what could go wrong with fracking under the ocean? No way that's gonna be bad. Other countries and territories have overlapping claims. An oil rig operated by CNOOC led to large anti-China protests in Vietnam in 2014. Beijing has also tried to stop unilateral oil and gas development by other countries. Yeah. Okay. That's an unfortunate story. Now, let's go here. North Korea. Where Kim Jong-un said thousands of flood victims will be brought to the capital for temporary care. As we saw recently, in mostly photos, North Korea was hit by heavy flooding after Typhoon Gaemi.
운명의 그 손길이 바로 자신말 속 가장 가까이의 속속들이 와 닿아 있었음을 눈물한 듯이 지상 낙원을 우뚝 세워놓고 잘 살아보자고 뜨겁게 말씀하시면서 우리 당에 대한 우리 인민의 변함없는 신뢰의 마음에 감사하다고. 이런
Sadly,
굳건한
I don't
믿음이
speak
있기에
Korean, so I
피해
cannot
복구는
translate this for you.
않는다고 말씀하셨습니다.
I assume she's saying, here's Kim Jong-un being playing Santa Claus for a moment.
슬픔과 비관의 눈물을 몰랐던 동지께서는 새 옷을 입은 어린이들을 한 품에 안으시고
There's Kim Jong-un again talking to the children. He really likes this one. No clear sign why.
당과 정부는 그 어떤 이로운 오보이를 격정의 눈물
Oh, he
속에
just bowed.
응답하며 원수님의 안녕을
Everybody loves it.
간절히
The crowd is going
축원했습니다.
wild. That's definitely not a very accurate translation. As I said, I don't actually speak Korean, but my guess is some of them could have been right. You don't know. You don't speak Korean either. You think I nailed it? Thank you. I appreciate that. I tried my very, very best to be as accurate as possible. It's my job. I do what I can. Now let's go a little bit east here to the island of Japan, where Prime Minister Fumio Kishida canceled his trip over potential megaquake after the recent 7.1 magnitude quake that happened. I think it was what's today? Is it 3 days ago? I think it was 3 days ago. Oftentimes, at least often enough, these quakes turn into a first and a second quake, like as if the first one is a warning to a larger event, right? And so, since it was such a large quake, there have been concerns raised in Japan over a potential mega quake. So, I think the Prime Minister was like going to the Olympics or something, but has decided this is more important. I'm just kidding. I'm sure he has something more important than the Olympics to do. Let's go to this.
Now, Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has cancelled a planned trip to Central Asia after scientists warn the country needs to prepare for a possible major earthquake. After a 7.1 magnitude tremor off the southern coast on Thursday, Japan's meteorological agency has issued its first ever mega earthquake warning. Now, residents living in the heavily populated region that faces the seismically active Nankai Trough have been told to be on high alert. Huge earthquakes along the Nankai Trough on Japan's Pacific coast do occur between every 90 and 200 years, and they're normally accompanied by big tsunamis. Well, to understand a bit more about what a mega earthquake is, I've been talking to Judith Hubbard, who's a geologist specialising in earthquakes and the author of the Substack Earthquake Insights.
Megaquake is kind of a new term. It comes from the term megathrust, which is a kind of fault that would rupture to produce a mega quake. It's a big subduction fault, in this case, in the Nankai Trough, offshore Japan. A megaquake is just defined as any earthquake here that's greater than magnitude 8.
And what then are the dangers in this for Japan, do you think?
Well, we've known for a long time that the Nankai Trough is capable of producing earthquakes of this magnitude. It's done it about 12 times since the 7th century, a couple times in the 20th century. So it's really something that's been on our radar for a long time.